The Black Godfather tells the incredible life story of Clarence Avant, the influential African-American music executive, talent manager, and entrepreneur who helped to make so many careers in the entertainment industry and beyond. One of the film's producers is his daughter, Nicole Avant, and she joins us here today. I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby and Ambassador Avant. The first question I want to ask is, was this documentary your idea, or did somebody come up to you and say, hey, someone should make a movie about Clarence?
It was definitely my idea. I thought about this film since I was 8 years old. It actually occurred, it's a longer, very long story, but the short version is I was at Dodger Stadium. I experienced a little bit of racial injustice, my first taste of it. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, and because I knew Hank Aaron had gotten us tickets, that's why we were at Dodger Stadium, sitting in the dugout seats. And in that moment, I remember saying, you know, one day I'm gonna tell a film that shows all of these people that I knew, but that had broken down so many barriers, that had been through so many challenges, but everyone just thought of them as celebrities, whether they were athletes or entertainers. Everyone just thought, ooh, look at this great life that all these people have. And no one really knew the backstory that we were all experiencing, whether it was some type of injustice or unfairness or unkindness due to our race or gender. So I've been thinking about it. And then the director, Reggie Hudlin, and I have been friends for over 20 years. And Reggie would always say to me, we've got to make this film about Clarence. But it was more than just my father. We wanted to make a film that, you know, I dedicate this film to Emmett Till as much as I do to Clarence Avant. I dedicate it to Quincy Jones. I dedicate it to Dr. King. I dedicate it to Andrew Young. I dedicate it to Hank Aaron and to Cicely Tyson and to Sidney Poitier, to all these men and women who were, like I said to you earlier, had this collective consciousness, this stream of consciousness to fight racism, to fight injustice, and to focus on freedoms. I mean, Emmett Till, as you saw in the movie, his murder is really what sparked my father's sense of fight for justice. So had my father not been so disturbed by that and so angered by that, I don't know. He might have taken a different path, might have taken an easier path. I don't know. But so this movie has been ingrained in me for a very long time. And I'm happy that we were able to get it out and everyone was able to be in the film that we wanted in the film. And so I'm really happy with it.
You know, it's so interesting because it's so interesting that this film, I believe, premiered last year. Yes. And you know, now we're going through what feels like, and what I'm hoping is a very pivotal moment for our country on issues regarding race and on many other fronts as well. But race is right there out front. And I'm curious as to, do you know of what his opinions are about what's currently going on in this country? Is he hopeful that what's going on right now will be pivotal?
He is hopeful. My father's hopeful for sure, but he's also, you know, he's 89 and a half almost. He's kind of looking at this again saying, really? Again? Are we still here? So I think he's kind of seeing, you know, look, you guys, if you don't tell stories to each other, everybody, if you don't tell the stories and right the wrongs of the past, you know, everyone has, you know, every country has been through things like this, but you have to own things. And then you have to make changes when necessary. There were lots of changes that could have been made 20 years ago in different facets of what's going on right now, that I think that he believes that had we nipped it then, or at least really talked about it openly then, none of these things that we're experiencing now are new. So it's a continuation of things that have been happening for hundreds of years. Have things gotten better? Of course they have. Have things become more just? Sure. Do we have so much more to do? Yes. And do we have things to own and ideas and old ideas that we need to get rid of? And really, it's about ownership right now. So I think my father is really hoping, and, you know, like I said, he's 89 and thinking, I hope before I leave here, we can have some social justice and some respect and decency towards each other and treat each other as human beings, because that's all he knew. He grew up fighting. growing up in Jim Crow South. I mean, he was born into a fight, so to speak. I never thought about that till right now, but he really did. He was kind of born into the arena of a fight, a big fight, and always fighting for himself, and then turned it into fighting for other people. So I think that's where he is right now, and I hope he gets his wish.
So one of my favorite things to ask people who have been involved with documentary films is, there's so much footage that you get when you shoot these films, and obviously you're not able to use everything that you would want to use. Were there any stories that you really wish could have been included in the movie, but for one reason or another, you weren't able to fit them in?
No, I think we have. Not really. I have to be honest. I would say this. I wish that we could have had some stories go a little longer and a little deeper, but we were cut for time. We were pressed for time, obviously. But I mostly got every single person except, if they weren't here. I wish I would have loved, if Joe Glazer was still alive. I would have obviously loved to have gotten someone like him. I would have loved to had an interview with Ed Nofer. So the people that I did want, we only didn't get because they weren't here. Might have been an executive or two in the entertainment business that somebody suggested that we didn't get. But I think in the long run, everybody else was able to tell each other's stories in such a great way that we covered everybody. So that was great. And I'm thrilled that we really got Cicely Tyson, because she was so important to me. And she had told me her story every time she'd see me out socially. And I thought, no, this is a big story. This is a big deal. You never did deals with him. But the fact that you thought it was such a big deal to see this Black man in the upper side, of New York, and how he would straighten that, and walk down the street so proud, but that he was able to live in that building. So, and she knew of him. So I think, for me, it was a thrill to get someone like Cicely Tyson to really also express herself as well.
And I actually found myself thinking while I was watching the movie, I was like, man, I wish we could have Don Cornelius in this movie. That would be so great.
I mean, it really would have been. And Don has so many other stories. I mean, Don actually was a huge part of civil rights. I mean, he was a journalist, and he used to be on the front line, during the marches, and, was a great journalist and a great writer, and did so many different things in business and real estate. There were so many things about Don Cornelius that people really don't know. But I'm happy that we got the footage and, his story in. And these are all men and women that I grew up with, really admiring and understanding that I have very heavy shoulders, big shoulders, I should say, to stand on. And I really better step up,
So I'm curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I don't remember hearing in the documentary was if Clarence had ever had any regrets in his life. Do you know if he's had any regrets in his life, or does he not have time for that?
He doesn't hold on to regrets at all. He doesn't. He definitely is good at, I'm sorry about that. I wish I would have done this. He doesn't hang on to anything. I think it's a part of his survival to stay peaceful. However, I think, I know he has a lot of in hindsight moments, and one of them being the radio station, and really purchasing the radio station and overextending himself. And really then, as a result of that, and maybe not, listening to people who knew how to run the business better than he did, that everything kind of crumbled because of it. And I think it took him to the darkest place. I know for sure it took him to the darkest place of his life. And without his friends, I don't know what would have happened to us. So I think he definitely regrets that. If he could go back and do it again, he would definitely do that differently. And many other things, I'm sure. But he's taught me not to really hang on to regrets, to always have in hindsight moments, and to think about what you would have done differently, and to at least own it to yourself. But he's always taught me, don't hang on to the stuff that you can't change anymore. You can't unscramble the egg. You just can't. But you can own it. You can own what you could really change your thought process and And at least if you could tell yourself, wow, I would never do that again. Or wow, you know, I would do that differently if I had another chance. That's what he's given me. If you could do that, Nicole, then you can move on.
So, you know, it's interesting that you work on this movie as a producer, and everything that, you know, you find, and it feels like sometimes you might discover information and be like, oh my, I never knew this before, you know, when you're working on a film about your own family. And I'm curious if you discovered anything about your father that you didn't know prior to being a part of this movie.
I think I didn't know, I didn't know the emotional side that he had, because he's pretty reserved. But, you know, for example, you know, the gentleman, John Platt, who's like another son to him, who was going through, you know, marriage difficulties. And I didn't know that side of my dad, who would really try his passion for trying to save his family and why. I definitely did not know. What surprised me the most is I had no idea about the Snoop Dogg story. None. Snoop is a friend of mine. He's like a brother to me. I had no idea that my father made that phone call, which then changed Snoop's consciousness, which then changed everybody else following him and changed the trajectory of his life. I had no idea. And I always tell my dad, I said, did you ever think that one thing that you begged Snoop to do, you know, moving out of gangster rap, changing what he was saying to young people, do you realize how many lives you've saved just by that one act? There's a huge domino effect of people really stepping up and showing up in people's lives and helping them change their lives in a positive way. So I was very happy with that story when I heard it and when I heard him tell the story, because I didn't know that.
So, you know, the scope of Clarence's career is so vast. I mean, it goes so all over the map, and I love how you showed that with, you know, throughout the film, you have like that picture of him in the circle, and then you just have all these lines out of there, connected, showing how all these people are connected to him. I'm curious, how did you and the filmmakers decide what to keep in and what to leave out of the film? Because, I mean, there's so much there.
I know, and you know what? I have to give that credit to all the editors, because every time we went to the editing room, I'm thinking, how we have 50 movies, because it's almost as if every person we interviewed had their own story. So it was almost as if we were telling a movie about every other single person. So it was difficult, but thank God for that entire editing team, and they helped us really craft the story of whatever could be left outside of this. We still had the soul of the story and the cake of the story, so to speak, and everything else that, you know, we might have had to trim a little icing, but it was okay. But, you know, I now understand the comment that everyone always makes of, if you don't have a good editor, you're screwed without a good one. And boy, is that true.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
this has
you.
Been wonderful. We wish you all the best this Emmy season. And to
thank you so much.
Thank you. And to all of our viewers, please like this video, subscribe to our channel to receive all our latest content. And don't forget to go to goldderby.com to make your predictions, and use the Gold Derby app to make your predictions and see if you can outsmart the top prognosticators in Hollywood. Thanks so much again.